Hello Mouses! We've got a little bit of legal news to talk about today, so we're going to get straight to it. Today we're talking about same-sex marriage, some weird things happening in space, and the reform of the House of Lords. So let's get to it. First up, we have a cardinal in Scotland, apparently the most senior Catholic cardinal in the country, who's decided that because there's intense public interest, there should be a referendum on whether gay people should have the same rights as everyone else. I'd like to personally say, no, you are not going to have a referendum so that people who are interested in whether gay people should have the same rights as everyone else can have their say on whether gays should have the same rights. Because, let's face it, we are all the same. We should all have the same rights. So if you want a referendum on whether gay people should have the same rights that you do, I want a referendum on whether you should have the same rights as everyone else. Because I want to vote no. Because let's face it, if you're deciding that you should have a say in whether other people have rights, the same rights that you have, then you should not have those rights. Because clearly you are not capable of acting like a reasonable human being. So you shouldn't have those rights. You should have them taken off you until you grow up. There's not really much to say on this. Some dickhead wants the ability to say, no, these people shouldn't have the same rights as everyone else, and I want to punch him. Surely we can come to a compromise. Perhaps if I just slap him across the face, and then he wakes up and gets a clue about what being a human being is all about, and then we can all go about our lives quite happily. Surely that's a decent compromise. Good, but right now, the Scottish Government has decided that no, it's a complete waste of time to have this referendum when the majority of decent people who actually know what they're talking about want to give gay people the same rights as everyone else. And I applaud the Scottish Government on that. I don't normally go for devolved governments because I think they're a massive waste of time, when what we could have actually done is have a better structured House of Commons to make sure that the views of everyone in each of the nations that make up the UK have a say in what's going on and that their voices are heard. I think that would have been a much better use of money. But we've got what we've got, and I'm glad to see that the Scottish Government, in this case, is actually doing its job properly. Okay, moving on, I want to talk about the reform of the House of Lords and how it might not actually happen. At the moment, Nick Clegg of the Liberal Democrats is deciding that maybe we won't bail David Cameron, the Prime Minister, out of the trouble that he's managed to get himself into this week. So we might get some concessions in favour of the Lib Dems this time. But what seems to be mostly scuppering their reforms at the moment is the fact that the timescale is very limited. What would happen is the House of Commons would eventually, having debated it for quite a long time, because it's got to be a committee of the entire House due to the fact that this is a constitutional issue, so the entire House of Commons has to be in on the committee stage, that would take a long time. And then all of those committee things have to be put into the bill, and then it gets sent to the House of Lords. The House of Lords go, ha, no way, and then pass it back, having rejected it, and then the Commons has to use the Parliament Act, and then send it back to the House of Lords and say, look, just vote on it, and then the House of Lords kick it about a bit and send it back, or pass it with a few amendments, and then it goes on to Royal Assent. That's how normally things would happen. But the problem is, at the moment, there is requirements for a referendum. And referendums take time because they have to go through a committee that deals with referendums, and they've got to have some time to think about it, because you can't just call snap elections. You used to be able to call snap elections, but you can't now because of the Fixed Term Parliaments Act, which stopped that. And also, just because it's going for a referendum doesn't mean it's going to pass. We had a referendum on whether the North East should have its own parliament, basically a northern parliament, like the Scottish Parliament, only a bit smaller, because North East is a bit smaller, and we all voted no. Because no one in the North East really wanted a lot of money to be wasted on a nice building and a few gravy trains, whereas what we actually wanted was for our ministers to take notice of what we were talking about. So we voted no, and all of that expensive legislation and all the time in Parliament was wasted. Democracy, you've got to love it. So just because someone has a referendum doesn't mean necessarily that it will pass. And then after all of that, all the people in Parliament are going, well, this is going to take a lot of time, and we've only got a small window to get this done, because even if we do get to the referendum stage in time, we have to, for monetary purposes, link this referendum to the European Parliament elections, which are coming up in 2014. And that's a lot of words to shove into a small space of time. So it just takes one guy on Labour benches, or perhaps a disinterested Tory or Lib Dem, to ask a few questions and cause a bit of trouble in Parliament, and bam, we've missed the deadline. So it's probably not going to happen. Oh dear. So from my point of view, I'm actually quite happy that this might not happen, because for hundreds of years the House of Commons has been the supreme legislature of the UK. And if we then put in a directly elected House of Lords to say, no, 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 we don't like what you've done, then now we have another body that's saying no to the supreme legislature. And then we get all kinds of problems, like they have in America, where the representatives and the Senate don't agree on things and they have a big argument. We don't really need that here. We've got enough arguments in the House of Commons already. So if we have a House of Lords, then I would prefer it to be elected, but I don't like the way that they're doing it, where they could do things that the House of Lords effectively doesn't do now. So I'm not for this legislation. Anyway, that's enough time spent on a load of stuffy old people who probably won't get powers that they haven't got now, because everyone can't agree on everything and then has to go to vote, and most people probably won't turn out for the vote anyway. So, let's talk about interesting space news. Pluto now has a fifth moon. Well, actually, technically it already had it, and probably has had it for billions of years. We just couldn't see it because it's quite small in galactic terms. So, it's there. It's called P5 because they haven't worked out a name for it yet. So now we have the moons of Pluto. It's Charon, Nix, Hydra, P4, P5. Easy to remember. Yeah. So what I would like to know is why Pluto, which is smaller than Earth, gets more moons than Earth. Surely we should have more moons. So I looked up on Google just how many moons Earth actually has, and this is what I found out. How many moons does Earth have? What we got here? Newsdiscovery.com. Earth captures a mini-moon. Oh, interesting. This was in 6th of April 2012, so apparently we have 2 moons? Well, 1.5 perhaps. What else we got? Oh, in fact, at any given time there may be at least one other mini-moon orbiting a planet as well. Well, that's interesting, but that's not what I want to know. So we have one and a bit, maybe. Okay, let's have a look at Yahoo Answers, which is basically called Yahoo I Reckon, or Yahoo My Mum Says, because that's pretty much how it goes. No one has an answer on Yahoo, that's just interesting. Oh, QI. How many moons does the Earth have? QI. Well, let's have a look here. I won't show this because I can't go against copyright, but we'll have a look. I'll link to it. So, interestingly enough, according to QI, which I have to admit is not always correct, there are 2 moons around the Earth. The moon, or Luna, and Cruithne, which apparently orbits every 730 years. Plus this weird one that this Discovery Channel says sometimes orbits and sometimes doesn't. So I'm going to say 2.5 moons. Why do we get exactly half the number that Pluto does? That's just not fair. There should be some kind of consensus here where the bigger the planet is, the bigger the number of moons. But apparently that would be just too damn simple for the universe, so we don't get enough. So I think, to be honest with you, it's probably not too bad that we don't have too many, because we do have a tendency to make our own moons by putting all those satellites into orbit. And if you've ever seen that satellite picture that's going around the internet at the moment of all the space debris around the Earth, we don't so much have a moon as a ring. So that's quite nice. But even so, I'd love to see some more moons, because that would just be really interesting. Suddenly we'd have an alien sky at night, and that would be nice. Anyway, I'm running way off topic now, so I'm going to say goodbye for today. If you like this video, don't forget to click the like button, subscribe so you see future videos, and share this video with your friends so they can see how many moons Earth has too. Until tomorrow, I've been Kirk-Robinson, you've been watching a video, and I'll see you later.